Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about unspoken rules of how to get on and off the stage. That seems like an obvious thing, but oftentimes you're going to find yourself in a situation, say you're on the second piece and the fourth piece of the program. How and when do you get yourself on the stage for just your pieces that you're on? And then how do you get off? And of course, being orchestra, there's a specific way to do it. Very first thing to know is that if you are not on the piece, if you do not have a part, you are not supposed to be on stage. So the stage is set for just the people involved in the piece. Along with that, you're going to need to know then ahead of time what the concert order is of the pieces, of course, so you know when your piece is. Over the course of my career, early on, I learned the hard way. My earliest memory was my very first professional orchestra that I was in. I was a member of it, the Irving Symphony in Dallas, or in Irving, but in Dallas area, Texas. And I was the piccolo player. I remember very specifically, let's just say I was on the second piece, so I was waiting in the wings nervously for when to get back on the stage for the piece I was on. The first piece ended, there was a lot of applause. I thought, okay, I'll just sneak on and be there. I wanted to make sure I was there on stage for the next piece. So I went through the percussion, I snuck on stage, and I got there, and the applause was still going on for the first piece. And then the conductor came back on and had the orchestra rise for applause for that first piece, and I had to stupidly stand up too. So I wasn't supposed to be there. This also applies to rehearsal. So when there's a rehearsal order, you are not supposed to be on the stage if you are not needed for that piece. I would say though, if it's a pops concert or an informal kiddie concert, those are different. Those you can just stay on stage because the pieces are shorter, and that's just a different thing. So I'm talking about a formal program with like Strauss and Mahler and etc., a formal classic orchestra concert. The second main rule from my example I gave before of my experience in the Irving Symphony is to not come on the stage for your piece until the applause for the previous piece is completely finished, like safely finished, because sometimes it can start up again. And the conductor has walked off the stage and seems like he's staying there. So if you see the conductor off the stage and the applause has completely finished, then and only then can you walk on stage to take your place for the next piece. The third rule that goes along with what I said before about when to enter is that you need to have your instrument or instruments put together and ready to go, ideally I think in hand, as you're walking out to your chair. It's preferable to have your music already on the stand in advance. That should be fine because your chair should be empty and a stand there. So leave your music on the stand before the concert even starts. It just looks weird and it's awkward to carry your instruments with your music tucked under your arm and everything. I would just advise that you have your instruments in hand, ready to go as you're walking out to the stage. You don't want to come out on stage with your flute bag or your instrument in its case, sit down and start, putting things together. It should already be done. You can, if there's enough room on the stage, it just depends. Leave your instruments on the stage on pegs. During the piece you don't play, you can just already have everything there. It just really depends on the stage spacing. I would, so you can leave your flute on its peg, never leave it on a chair. And of course, don't leave it on the music stand like a high school kid. I would never ever though, leave your piccolo on a peg, unless it's one of those orchestra pegs that full-time orchestras have that stand up above the ground. So it's at the same height as your piccolo, but most of us freelancers don't have those. You have the little pegs, so it's just looks like a little bigger than a nail coming out of the floor. So you don't want to lay that responsibility on your colleagues that they might step on it or might get kicked over. Okay, and then the fourth thing, you've played your piece and now you need to exit the stage because you are not on the next piece. This happens all the time. The main thing I would say to do, again, you wait till you've played your piece, there's applause for that piece, the conductor, wait and make sure if the conductor leaves the stage, he might come back on. You have to wait for all that formality because that's all part of that piece you just played. So the conductor could walk off, there's still applause, he comes back on, and then he walks off again, seems to stay there, and the applause completely stops. Then you can exit the stage. And exiting the stage, I would just advise to know where your path is you're getting out of, and that there is one. And you might want to mention to whoever's right in your path, like the last stand second violins or the percussion, you could mention to them, I'm going to need to get through here after this piece, so could you like roll your mallet out of the way? Or you don't want to touch anybody's instrument if it's percussion, but make sure that those people know that you will be needing to get off and they can just sort of make room for you. The other thing with leaving the stage, which goes along with entering the stage, you should ideally only have your instruments with you if you're coming on and off. So when you're leaving the stage, just take yourself and your instrument off the stage. You shouldn't have your case with you unless there happens to be time to put it all away, but that's very unlikely. So what you need to do is know where your case is going to be off stage. So have your case in a place that you can find, because oftentimes it's super dark backstage. They're not turning the lights on just for you. So know where your case is. You can have your phone back there to use the flashlight to put your instrument away. If the stage you're at has no lighting at all, which has happened to me plenty of times. So as you're leaving the stage, you want to exit, quickly but calmly. There's a lot of expensive instruments around you, and just have your path worked out ahead of time with your instrument, go backstage, and then put everything away. The fifth thing for stage etiquette when you're not on all the pieces on a program is if, for example, you play, say there's 4 pieces on a program and you play the second and the fourth, or the first and the fourth, which is likely. In between, when you're not on the program, in between when you're just hanging around backstage or down in the green room or something, you have to make sure you don't completely check out and that you're paying attention to the program, or at least to know, okay, I played the first piece, there's a second piece, then there's an intermission. Then I'll know I need to start paying attention and get back on stage. I would just say don't wander far away when you're in between pieces, and just know that if you're hanging out backstage or down in the green room with other people, which is like the tuba player, the E-flat clarinet player, the contrabassoon, all the percussionists, they may not be playing on the next piece that you're playing on. So don't just wait for everyone else to go back on stage. You have to keep track of what's happening, and just make sure you're backstage safely with plenty of time. Better safe than sorry. You do not want to miss getting back on the stage. So these are 5 things that I've learned over my long career, mostly occurring because I'm a freelancer and or a piccolo player. So that's always a situation where I'm not just sitting there on the stage for the entire program. And I've learned the hard way that there's a way to do things. There's an etiquette in orchestra world on when to leave the stage, how to leave the stage, when to get back on the stage, and how to do it. And it's all unspoken. No one tells you that. And if you're unsure of anything on how to do this stuff, I would advise that you just pay attention to the other like-minded instruments that are in your same situation, like the tuba and contrabassoon, on how they do it. You can just sort of observe and watch, or ask them. Ask an older freelancer, like, how do you get back on the stage? What are the rules? This will just avoid you doing it wrong and feeling a little foolish, although doing it wrong is a great way to learn. If you found this video helpful, please hit subscribe, and you'll see more videos on this insider knowledge of the unspoken rules of orchestra etiquette. Thanks for watching.